Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and Courtney, how are you?
Um, I just realized I forgot to think about anything I did with my life recently. So I'll tell you what I did today.
Beautiful.
Um, I've been, since being off at the bar, I've been trying to spend some more time with myself. And I told you I bought a VR headset. So I've been trying out new games and I tried Beat Saber, which is like everyone's favorite right now. It is very fun. I like it. And then I found this game called Retropolis, which is I don't know, it's like a robot world that you do stuff in. And
Cool.
then I
And
found this game called Down the Rabbit Hole. It is obviously Alice in Wonderland themed. And there's nothing
obviously,
I love more than an Alice in Wonderland video game.
fantastic.
So I've been playing it and you have to go through and find all these invitations for the Queen's party so that you can get your cat back. It is so fun.
I love it.
It's what I was doing before we recorded because I just can't stop. And it's also what I'll be doing when we get done recording until the Tonys start. So I'm just
Fantastic.
kind of wrapped up in a world of games right now.
I love
How are
it.
you?
You know, um, when this episode airs, I will officially be done with the school year.
Whoop, whoop.
Um, but today, as we were recording this, I'm not quite done, but I am at the point where I'm done teaching. I still have 7 days of school, but we're just finishing reading the books that we are done with and having free time in class to work on our final projects and doing field day and graduations, and I'm done. I'm checked out.
I love it.
Um,
As you should be. As you should
and
be.
so yeah, I have 7 more days. The kids,
Nice.
the eighth graders were on Friday. They were like, "Are you gonna miss us when we're gone?" And I said, "I will miss you 42% of the time." And
That's a fair percentage.
they were like, "That's less than half." I said, "Correct, yeah." I don't know why you're asking for more. You act like assholes in my class. I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally fair. Totally fair.
But yeah,
Yeah, and
so
that's more than I would have given them. So yeah.
yeah, it's great. I'm done. We're watching movies and working on projects, and I am out of it for the year.
It's a
So
good plan.
I'm great. I'm great. I like my fifth graders have one more paper assignment that we have to do on Tuesday, and it's literally just a worksheet that is read the series of unfortunate events, The Bad Beginning, and we're almost done with the 2 episodes of the Neil Patrick Harris TV show. So we're gonna finish
Oh,
that on Monday, and then Tuesday we're just gonna do a worksheet where we talk about the major differences between the book and the movie, and that'll be the last paper assignment I have for the whole year.
I love that. I love
Me
a
too.
series of unfortunate events too.
Me too. So yeah, that's it. That's where I'm at. I'm not feeling good about the end of the year yet because I still have to grade everything. Um,
Sure, sure.
so got a lot of work to do. I don't. I will not feel great until next Tuesday, the 20th. Because I will be spending next weekend rating all of my final projects because
Yeah, you will.
I decided to give all the kids final projects instead of exams because I feel like in English, project-based learning just makes more sense. Write me something, make me something, show me that you learned these concepts without a test.
Yeah,
But that also means that I then
I
have to
agree.
read, then that means that I have to then read all of those papers and create all of those projects. And
Yeah. Kind of lovely though. You're so close. You're so close.
so close. Um, you know what would make me feel even closer to Nirvana?
What is that?
Just a dash of spiritual affirmation.
Absolutely. So I thought I saved one earlier, but I guess I didn't. So I don't think I read this one last week because I saved six, and I don't think this is one of the ones I read. Um, we only get to be in our bodies for a limited time. Why not celebrate the journey instead of merely writing it out until it's over?
I love that.
Jen Sincero. Sorry, I didn't quote the person, but yeah.
Fantastic. No, I love that. You know what else I love?
Is it Stargate?
It is Stargate. Um, I yesterday was hanging out with my BFF Doug there, and I told him that today the episode we were talking about was Crystal Skull, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that episode that showed Crystal Skulls before Indiana Jones made it not cool."
Yeah, I was watching it. I was like, is this Indiana Jones? Are we in a horror film? Like, what is this episode? I had a lot of feelings when this episode started.
So Stargate SG-1 is season 3, episode 21, titled very simply Crystal Skull.
Yep.
It was rated 8.0 stars. And it came out on March 3rd, 2000. The number one song was Amazed by Lone Star.
Look, that's a great song, though.
It's a fantastic song. It's taking everything in me not to just sing it at you right now. The number one movie was a movie I have, once again, never heard of because apparently I did not see. It was a movie that I have not heard of because apparently, just like the last couple weeks, I apparently did not see movies in the year 2000. That was just like not a thing. This movie is called The Next Best Thing. It is a rom-com where Madonna has a baby with her gay best friend, and I think that I don't need to know anything else about the movie, know that I probably would not enjoy it.
I think that's probably fair. I have heard of it, but I have not seen it.
The same book. We're living in John Grisham's world.
Sure.
I could find no news about March 3rd, 2000, but it doesn't matter because March 3rd is my dad's birthday, so that's the most important piece of news anyway. So
yeah. Yep. Love it.
Yeah. This episode was directed by Brad Turner. The story was written by Michael Greenberg and Jared Paul with a teleplay by Brad Wright, and the editor was Rick Martin. So I've got nobody
No
new.
news.
No news. The guest star is John Rubes, who played Nick Ballard. Couldn't remember the last name for a second there. He was known for the movie Witness, for D2, The Mighty Ducks, and for a recurring role in The X-Files. He was born in Czechoslovakia.
Is Nick Ballard not the name of the guy who plays Nick? Or like, isn't it the character from Nick from CSI? Is that his name?
I don't think that's true.
Nick Ballard. No. That name sounds familiar and not from like I know this actor way.
No, well, because when I looked, oh no, there is an actor named Nick Ballard. That is a thing.
Well, this guy, that's his character name.
Yeah. Oh no, John Rubes is the actor. Nick Ballard is the character. The actor Nick Ballard looks like a generically handsome white man who does Hallmark movies. He kind of looks like the guy who plays Lucifer, but like not.
Yeah.
So
interesting. I really thought, I don't know.
No, are you talking from CSI? Nick.
What is his last name?
Nick from CSI. Nick Stokes is the character and the actor.
That's what I was trying to think.
Yeah, no, Nick Stokes is the character. The actor's name is George Eads. He was also in MacGyver, and I'm slightly obsessed with him. It's fine.
This is not what I thought, but the actor Nick Ballard was in CSI New York, apparently.
Oh, okay. That's not who we were thinking of at all.
That's not who I was thinking of at all. Okay. Sorry, I don't know. My brain is just like...
I just like that I somehow still pulled it back to MacGyver.
You do. You're very good at that. You're very good at that.
But so John Rubes was born in Czechoslovakia and actually started his career as an opera singer. He studied in Prague and did opera, and then didn't move to Canada until I believe the 1980s. I want to say he went to the music school in 1945. But also he has a bunch of children, and one of his sons, Christopher, died of AIDS-related pneumonia, and so he founded an EMS studies center. So Yeah, so, he's just like a good person.
Oh my gosh, my friend and photographer's last name is Ballard. I've lost my mind. It's fine.
Also, something
Haley.
happening in your desk because you are wobbling.
Um,
Like when you said, "Oh my God," and like threw yourself back, I think you must have hit your computer or something because your phone was
it's possible.
wobbling
It's also
so
like
much.
so my screen is not super great, super sturdy. So I have it propped, but I also have my phone like attached to the top of it for the camera. So it's like even more weighted.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
But yeah, so we will get right into this
I love him.
episode. Yeah, he seems like a really sweet old man. I really, really like him. Um, we start at a gigantic pyramid, like massive. Um,
Mhm.
my favorite is that they make Jack seem like he's so stupid he doesn't know what measurements are. Because like I know that there's a lot of sciencey words that they say that Jack doesn't understand, which is valid. But when Sam says this pyramid is over 1,000 meters high, and he goes, "Is that big?"
The number is a
Like,
thousand. So regardless if you understand measurements,
right. Most humans are between 1 and 2 meters tall. So that's 500 humans on top of each other.
yeah, yeah, it's quite a
Um,
lot, quite big.
yeah. Teal'c says that he's never seen a Goa'uld structure that big, and Daniel's like, "Well, the pyramid is Mayan, so like we have to go." Because once again, Daniel just is like, obviously anything, I need to see it. Like
Yeah, well,
he
of
he
course.
can't he can't help himself.
Mhm.
So then the map goes inside the pyramid, and we get this like we get these like scientific readings that um Sam starts freaking out because she also needs to go because there's something in the pyramid that like changes how matter works. And
Yeah,
she's explaining I don't remember what the word she uses. Like neutrinos, I think it's neutrinos, which are like pieces of atoms that float through matter, and she's like there are neutrinos going through you all of the time. They go through everything, but these ones are like literally chain totally different. So
yeah. I'm
she's
not
like,
gonna pretend to remember what science word she used that I've never heard of
no,
before.
no, I just
My
I
brain, like, she said it, and I was like,
it's only nice that I remembered the word because then later when Jack calls them Nintendos,
oh yes, yes,
is
yes. That's very cool.
it's a great moment. Neutrinos,
Sure,
I
yeah,
guess it does kind of sound like Nintendos if you have no idea what you're talking about.
yeah. I mean, I would think she was saying like nutrients if I didn't
Yeah,
like, I was like, oh,
right.
there's nutrients in here that affect the matter.
Yeah,
Like
but
that at
it's
least
spelled
has some kind of basis of logic.
right. And if you watch the show with captions on, you see that it's spelled Neut, which is like
Mhm.
neutron, which is where it actually comes from.
Which
Um,
makes sense.
correct. Nintendo's does not.
No,
But then because Daniel apparently his glasses give him the world's best vision, he's like, "Can you zoom in on that thing there that was definitely not on the screen?" I don't know what he saw, but they do because that
yeah, it's
works.
there now. Hmm.
And there's a crystal skull on a pillar in the middle of this pyramid, straight up like an Indiana Jones movie. And he's like, "Oh my God, that's identical to the skull my grandfather found in Belize in 1971."
Yeah, I
First
was
of
like,
all,
okay, how do you remember such a specific detail?
yeah, first of all, that is the grainiest fucking image of a crystal skull I've ever seen, and you know it's identical.
Yeah,
Second of all, you have never once mentioned your grandfather or his archaeology ever in the years you have worked there.
mm-mm, mm-mm.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So then, along with the rest of us, he fills in the team on all of this information that he apparently had that we did not. And his grandfather, Nick, who he calls Nick, um, discovered a skull that he believed would transport him to see aliens. No one believed him.
Like
Um,
Porky. So now we're talking
Right.
in Harry Potter.
Right. They're like, we need to go see the skull. And Janet's like, that is all well and good, but the radiation on that planet is fucking whack, and you will not survive for more than 15 minutes. So just know you got to get in and get out.
Yeah. And everybody's like freaking out. They're like, that's not enough time. We can't do that. And Janet's like, okay, you can do it or you can die. Like, these are your options.
Right. So they got there. Well, and then Daniel's like, what about like radiation suits? And this is where Jack is like, but the Nintendos will go through everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they got there and they find out that like the inside of the cave is massive. Like inside the pyramid is this massive cavern that, according to Daniel, will hold every pyramid on Earth at once. And then the radiation is just like slowly increasing the whole time they're there. But cool, doesn't matter. Let's just walk out on this really dangerous, long, skinny path to like it straight up looks like the fucking Cave of Wonders in there.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
So they walk out to the skull, and it is exactly like the one that Nick has found. And then some kind of like electrical radiation field comes off the skull, and like lights start to surround Daniel. And Teal freaks out and shoots the skull with his Zat gun, but then Daniel falls over, and we can see him laying there, but apparently they can't. And they're all freaking out that Daniel's missing, and they leave in a rush.
Yeah, this episode is off the rails already. Like, I
Right.
was not prepared.
At one point, I looked at Dan and I go, you know, all those videos where they show people convincing their little siblings that they're invisible and no one can see them? That is what this episode felt like to me. Because
Yes, 100%.
the amount of times that they like react to him being there, even though he's not there. And then like it literally is like when you tell your baby sibling that their parents will never see them again because they've accidentally turned themselves invisible. That's what just happened. So back at base, they tell Janet and Hammond everything that happened, and we find out that like their internal thermostats are like all fucked up from the radiation, and they're in the infirmary, and everything is a mess, and they have no idea where Daniel is. So they use the MALP to scan the inside of the pyramid, and Daniel, there's no heat signature. Daniel is not there, and Teal'c wants to go retrieve the skull to locate Daniel. And this was one of my favorite moments of the entire episode. I laughed so hard because Teal'c, there were two moments this episode that I could not stop laughing. One was this, Teal'c was like, I want to go get the skull. And Hammond is like, what if the skull takes you as well? And he goes, then I will have found the location of Daniel Jackson. I don't understand what the problem is here.
Right.
Then my mission will be successful. I will find him. Duh.
Right. He's like, totally fine. Totally fine.
Yeah. So Teal'c returns to get the skull, and Daniel like tries to talk to him, but Teal'c still can't see him. So Daniel luckily follows him through the gate. So now he's invisible, but at least invisible on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a better place to be invisible, probably.
So then Teal'c returns the skull, and they're taking it to Dr. Rothman, who is not a great archaeologist.
He is not. And I am very concerned for this world if they have the archaeologists they have are Daniel Jackson, who mostly knows what he's talking about, and then this guy's the next best. Like,
right. No, and I know he was like Daniel's research assistant, but like.
But you know who else was Daniel's research assistant? That guy that we never saw again.
From last week, Nyan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be his research.
Why didn't we put Nyan on the crystal skull? He has a brain.
He has a brain.
He doesn't have
the one to do it.
History of the human civilization of the Mayans, which like fair. Dr. Rothman, we need him for that. But what did Jack say about Dr. Rothman? It was so funny. I can't remember what the quote was, but he literally was like, Dr. Rothman couldn't like do something that was like so ridiculous. It was so simple and so stupid. And I was like, Jack, you're
so but true. Also, like, to be fair, Dr. Rothman like sucks. as an archaeologist. I just don't understand
Honestly,
why he was so
anytime
long.
somebody uses a nasal spray while having a conversation, I stop thinking that they have any like skills whatsoever. Um,
Yeah,
it's really um
that's very fair.
where maybe it's on here.
Are you on IMDb? Because that's where I
I
was
am on
going.
IMDb on the quotes, but it is not there.
Mm.
Yeah, unfortunately. There are a lot of other really funny Jack quotes because Jack and Teal'c were both on fire in this episode.
Yeah.
Um, but no, that quote is not there. Um, so he tells Sam and Jack what happened, but they are still too weak to leave the infirmary, and this is where my second favorite moment of Teal'c for the entire episode is because Jack is like, I'm sick of laying around, help me out of this bed. And Teal'c says, Dr. Fraser says that you are too weak to go on a mission. And Jack's like, yeah, whatever, and tries to get out of bed and then immediately crumples on the floor. And as he's laying on the floor, Teal'c just goes, Dr. Fraser is usually right in these matters.
Yeah. Yeah. She is. She's the only one right. Teal'c knows. Teal'c knows.
Teal'c is like, I listened to Dr. Fraser because y'all are stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel's still trying to figure out what happened also. Like he's taking the information he's learning from
Being
like
invisible.
eavesdropping and being invisible and like trying to figure out what actually happened. Um, so then they go to Dr. Rothman, who is like super skeptical about the skull and using a nasal spray while talking to people and just being like completely gross and not being very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But Hammond wants absolutely none of his bullshit.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you know? And he's like, nothing. He goes, fix that. Okay, great.
Which, like, is fair. I mean, you're supposed to
Yeah,
be like the next best archaeologist,
yeah.
and you don't know
Um,
anything, or even like where to start. Like, you should at
and
least know
he's
where to
he's
start, right?
yeah, he's like it kind of looks like the same skull that Dr. Ballard had at in the Smithsonian, but I think it was made in Germany in the 1800s.
No, this
What?
guy's a moron.
Yeah. Um, so then we go to see Teal'c doing Kelnorine, and he like senses Daniel's presence, but he still can't like see or hear him. And so that is frustrating for Daniel, who like likes
Mm-hmm.
to hear himself talk more than anyone else on planet Earth.
Yep. Yep.
And then Rothman is like, I don't think the skull is the sole cause of the radiation. And then Daniel like suddenly realizes that he hasn't been hungry or thirsty this entire time, which is theoretically like quite a few hours at this point, maybe even day. And so then he just decides that he's dead. He's like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God,
That was.
it must be because I'm dead. I must be a ghost." And for a split second, I was like, maybe.
Yeah. I was like, are you taking notes from Dr. Rothman? Like, I don't. That's a very like extrinsic like conclusion
Yeah,
to get to.
right. But Sam can sense him moving, and once again, Sam is the only one who's like attempting to use her brain.
Bless her.
So then she goes to General Hammond and she's like, "Can we find Daniel's grandpa? Because I don't think we're gonna get any answers without him." And Janet's like, unfortunately, I like already took the liberty of trying to figure out if that was an option. And apparently he's been living the last like 20 years in a psychiatric institute that he checked himself into because he had a complete mental breakdown when no one would believe his alien theory. And Daniel's
American
like,
Horror Story crossover.
and
Two of
Daniel's
our
like,
characters are in psych wards.
and Daniel's like, yeah. And they're like, why didn't Daniel tell us this? And poor Daniel's in the corner, like, yeah, because that was what I was going to lead with. Also, he's insane.
Yeah, which is
And
not
they're
like a great basis to go off of if you actually believe he's insane. Why are you
right,
making this whole big deal about it?
right. And then they're like, they're like, actually, the only person who ever visited him was Daniel, who hasn't visited him in 4 years. And Daniel's like, because
Which
he
is so
kicked me
sad.
out. Of course, they can't hear that.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's still so sad. Like,
yeah.
you know,
Um, it's also moments like this where I completely forget that Daniel's parents are dead. Um, because I'm like, why did no one else visit him? And then like, oh right, because literally everyone else is dead. Got it.
right?
Cool.
It's just him and
Um,
Daniel now.
yeah. Um, so they go to see Nick because the doctors at the psych ward were like, he will see anyone who's a friend of Dr. Jackson's. Like, that's fine. So they go, and Daniel's like trying to tell him to like listen to them and trust them, but Daniel's mostly invisible and potentially dead. Um, so then Nick is like, I'll tell you about my experience, but only if you'd let me see the skull. And they're like, we really can't do that. He goes, those are your options.
Which is totally fair. Like if I was Nick, I'd also be like, are you coming in here to like screw around with me because you think I'm insane because of all of this? Or are you actually coming in here to get my
Yeah.
help? Because if you're coming in here to get my help, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Totally
Um,
fair.
then Daniel, nope. Oh, Hammond gives them permission, but is like, but everything, like, this is the biggest secret in the entire US. Like, you can't let him see it. And Jack's like, fine, we just won't take him to level 28. Like, great.
Yeah.
Which then makes me think all of the stuff about the Stargate is all fit on level 28. That feels like a security issue already. What if there's a
Right. Yeah.
fire?
Like
What if there's a fire on level
shouldn't
28?
yeah. Like it should be spread out. It should be like not at first of all, regardless, everything should not be in one place at one time, regardless of fire, safety. Like if you have every person has all the knowledge, I'm sorry, I spiraled thinking of trade secrets. So I've been wanting
No.
to like if you give one person the entire
Yeah.
recipe to Coca-Cola, then they can
Yeah.
give it away. But if you give them only a piece of it, that's the whole idea behind trade secrets is that everyone just has a piece and then signs off that they can't share their piece.
Right.
So that's how they should do it with the
Um,
Stargate. That's how the military should do
yeah.
it. We did it with Area 51.
Right. Truly. Also, I'm gonna spiral for a second because
Great.
do you know why Coca-Cola is the most popular drink in the entire world?
Is it because of trade secrets or marketing?
Well, kind of a little bit. So what had happened was, um, back in the 1930s and 40s, there were Coke plants everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then when shit got real bad with the Nazis, the US was like, we don't want to have any connection with Germany. But instead of shutting those plants down, what happened was the plants kept running, but they couldn't make Coke because of trade secrets. Nobody in Germany had the information to actually make Coke. Um, so instead, they used what was available to them in Germany and created Fanta. Yeah, Fanta is a Nazi
What?
drink.
I had no idea.
So then they were creating
Uh,
Fanta and they were using Fanta in Germany because they could make it with what they had and the information that they had. But that means that as soon as trade blockades were over and everything with the Nazis was done, Coke had open and functioning factories already where no one else did. So they immediately went back in and could get back to work as if nothing had happened. So that's why Coke is made so much more in all over the world because they never shut anything down.
oh, and didn't they buy Fanta? Like, don't they own Fanta
Oh
too?
yeah, they own Fanta. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's
Yeah.
wow, wild.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So every
I
time
thought
you
it was
drink
because of the cocaine. So, you know, but
cocaine and Nazis, that's how we got where we are today.
that
Um,
sounds right.
but eventually Hammond does give them permission to bring Nick into the base, because as long as they don't take him or to any of the places he can't go or tell him any of the things he can't know. Um, But then Invisible Ghost Daniel is still there in General Hammond's office, and we get the sweetest, saddest moment of General Hammond on the phone with his granddaughters talking about like their school play and losing their teeth. And like the juxtaposition between Daniel and his grandpa's relationship and like Hammond's relationship with the girls. So sad.
Yeah.
I also found a Stargate drinking game
Stop.
that will kill you. Like it will kill you. It is
Great, I'm in.
yeah. Like there's different rules for different characters, and one of the Hammond rules is anytime he mentions his grandkids, you drink. Um, I have
love
the
it. We should
rules.
have
It
a
was
drinking game on our wrap up.
we should. I have it on screenshotted it from Reddit because also the Stargate Reddit board is going away. It's going dark
So,
starting tomorrow.
okay. So this is my question.
Yeah.
Is Reddit going away? People
No,
keep talking
so
about something happening June 30th.
Okay, so everything I know is starting June 12th. So this is what happened. Reddit didn't used to have an app. They always existed online, but they didn't have their own
Right.
app. And so there were all these third-party apps that got made as like places to host Reddit boards. Now that Reddit has its own app and has developed more, they're trying to get rid of all of the third-party apps that have access to their information. So a lot of the boards, a lot of the Reddit boards are going dark in protest of these negotiations between Reddit and the third party hosting apps. And until something gets figured out, some of them might go dark permanently. There's also another thing. Time Hop is currently in a lawsuit with Twitter about hosting and like API stuff and background stuff. So like if you have Time Hop, starting June 9th, or no Twitter information is on Time Hop anymore. And it was really confusing because I was going and I was like, how come I can't see my tweets? So I like went in my settings and like my tweets weren't like Twitter wasn't an option. Time Hop is currently in negotiations with Twitter to try to fix that, but they've changed the laws for their API background stuff. And so Twitter like won't give it to Time Hop for free anymore. So they have to do all this negotiation with money. And the same thing is happening with Reddit and the third-party hosting apps. All of these sites are like shutting down on third-party information, which on the one hand is good for security purposes because you know that those like it means that those sites are being more stringent about what third party things can access their information. But on the other hand, these sites that have always been linked to them are now having to face things that they never had to face before with like API information. So like there's a whole thing happening with the internet and like sharing sourcing and everything.
This is what? I'm not going to get to see my Marvel rewatch tweets. I'm at a loss. I've been like
going
onto spiral.
I've been going onto Twitter and scrolling all the way back to last year to see what I tweeted last year because I tweet more like interesting things than I post on Facebook because I tweet the things that I would not say out loud sometimes. And like especially like this month, it's June, so it's like going back to when I was first kind of starting to sort of like date Dan. And so like I'm going back to try to see like the things I tweeted about him before I was like ready to publicly talk about him. So I have to like scroll all the way back on my Twitter and find June of 2022 instead of like checking my Time Hop because Time Hop currently doesn't have access to Twitter. But yeah, so if you are interested in that kind of thing, like look into third-party API lawsuits that are happening right now because that's where the Reddit and the Time Hop problems are coming from.
Apollo is going the subreddits are going dark on the 12th and Apollo is going dark on the 30th. Wow, this is wild. I am
the Stargate
subreddit. These are
subreddit
only for 48 hours though. It's like
well, the Stargate subreddit is going dark on the 19th, I think, for 48 hours in hopes of a negotiation, and then if not, they're going to go dark permanently.
That's what I'm seeing. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope everyone finds this as interesting as I do because first of all, it's sci-fi. It's real life science.
Right. No, that's true. It's real life science fiction. The internet, like,
and this is just I just saw something about this yesterday and was like, I don't know what that means. This is absolutely insane.
That's why I also like I went and I screenshotted something the other day on Reddit, and like a pop-up like popped up and was like, "Don't screenshot it, share it. It looks so much better in our format." Blah blah blah. But I was like, "Yeah, but then you're gonna
What if your
close down
format's
Reddit."
broke?
It's like you're
Yeah, if
gonna.
you close Reddit, we can't use your format.
So there's a couple things that I'm like, let me make sure I screenshot that before Reddit disappears. So I did in
Wow,
fact
that is
screenshot
absolutely
I
wild.
did in fact screenshot the drinking game rules because
Oh, yes, yes, that is where we started at this before I immediately was like, what is happening?
yeah.
Yes, excellent. Please enlighten me.
So the drinking game rules, we've got some great ones. For Jack, anytime he says for crying out loud, anytime he says good morning campers, anytime he gets taken over by an alien, anytime he is undiplomatic, anytime
Always.
yeah, anytime he reminds someone that he was retired, um, anytime he talks back to his superiors, anytime he uses the wrong word or name, for instance, calling neutrinos Nintendos, um,
Yes.
anytime he disobeys a direct order, anytime he berates a subordinate for disobeying a direct order, anytime he calls people snakes or snakeheads or says there's a snake in someone's gut, and anytime he says the word junior. So
So
you
you
would
literally
need
just like drink the whole time, like a steady stream of
right.
drinking.
And that's just the Jack rules.
That's just
Yeah. Daniel, anytime he comes back from the dead, um, anytime he corrects a translation with a synonym of the same word,
yeah,
um, anytime he blows an
that's my
op by
favorite.
anytime he blows an op by trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved, anytime he turns evil, anytime he continues arguing his case after Hammond has already agreed with him, um,
I also love that one.
anytime he just says Jack, and anytime he has a relationship or a former relationship with a Goa'uld or host.
Oh my god! Every episode. There's
Um,
just there's no hope.
Sam, anytime she gives unnecessary exposition, anytime
So hard.
she, anytime she just yells "Sir" or "Colonel" when trying to talk to Jack, um, anytime she makes a Nobel Prize worthy discovery during the course of the episode that is played off like it was expected for her to do that. Anytime she spends her free time working. Anytime she makes a point about her gender. Anytime she almost has a relationship with someone. And anytime someone she almost had a relationship with dies.
Oh, that's sad, but also unfortunately too common.
Yeah. Teal'c, anytime he raises his eyebrow. Anytime he misunderstands an Earth expression. Anytime he makes a joke. Anytime he makes a solemn oath. Anytime he is singled out for being an alien. Anytime he wears a hat. Anytime he mentions Chulak. Anytime he mentions being the first prime of Apophis. Anytime he goes into Kelnoreen. And anytime he shoots and hits an enemy with his staff without even looking.
To be fair, I do feel like I should drink every time he wears a hat, like just in general, because
Honestly,
he
just
looks so
reading this,
strange.
I realized I would be hospitalized in just this episode.
Yeah, in every
Um,
episode, every one of them.
yeah. General Hammond, anytime he reminds Colonel O'Neill about the chain of command, anytime he mentions the president, anytime he mentions his grandkids, anytime he talks to either the president or his grandkids on the red phone, anytime he says the phrase, "We do things a little different around here." Um, Braytac, anytime he mentions his age in Earth years, anytime he makes a baldness gesture when mentioning Hammond, and anytime he uses his staff weapon on full auto mode.
I love it. I love it.
Dr. Fraser,
Oh my gosh, we're
and
gonna die.
as anytime she is about to zap someone with paddles, only for their heart to start beating at the last minute. Um, Anytime she pulls rank, and anytime she says "as your doctor." Anytime anyone from SG-1 or like humans in general say we don't leave people behind. Um, Anytime they point their weapon at the locals just so that they can prove that they're friendly by then lowering their weapon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And anytime they offer to share 1990s technology. Um, anytime a Jaffa is willing to die for their cause or swears vengeance. And anytime a Goa'uld is offended or kills a larval Goa'uld.
Well, yeah, nope, you just drink the whole time. Just drink the whole time. Oh gosh, that sounds very dangerous.
So
We should do it
dangerous.
for like 10 minutes of an episode one time.
I was like, I would love to play it, but then we couldn't take notes because we would be blackout drunk.
We should do it in
So,
the very last episode of the entire series.
it might not be as effective by the end. So I feel like these are like very
True.
much like early season tropes that
So
like
maybe what we do is when we finish the final episode, we go back and watch the first episode and do it on that one.
I like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So check back in. We're actually like making headway. It's 213 episodes and we're on like what, like 66?
Something like that. Yeah.
We're like a fourth of the way through, guys.
That also doesn't include Atlantis and Universe though.
Well, no, but I would say like when we finish
Yeah.
SG-1 and go back to, you know, before we move on to the next universe.
Yeah, but
Or whatever.
Atlantis and SG-1, we have those 3
Oh,
seasons
right.
where they run concurrently.
I forgot about that. You know, it's fine.
It's gonna be fine. It'll be great. Anyway, back to this episode where if we were playing the drinking game, we'd be dead.
Yeah.
Daniel keeps trying to communicate with Jack and Sam, and they can't see him, but they like also keep kind of being like, "Do you just feel like he's still around?" And then like not actually seeing him. Um, but Teal'c takes. Oh, I skipped a whole scene where we see Nick actually coming to see the skull. And he says that it's definitely exactly like the one that they found in Belize. And he tells them everything he experienced it there, which matches everything that Daniel told them, except that Daniel didn't mention the fact that he claims to have seen giant mist aliens.
Yeah, that felt important to not to mention.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's fine.
It's fine. But it turns out it's because Daniel didn't believe him.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which is like a bummer. Like, especially like what you've seen now, Daniel, and you're like, no, I don't believe this guy. Like, you've been to like multiple different planets.
Right. But so then Jack and Sam say that they feel Daniel, but they can't see him. And then Teal'c takes Nick back to his room, and Nick starts apologizing to Daniel and having this whole conversation with him. And then Daniel's like, wait, you can see me? He's like, yeah, I can see you, but it doesn't matter because you're not real. And he's like, no, I am real. He was like, all hallucinations say that. And he was like,
I was like, you're not wrong.
yeah. But so then Daniel explains to him that like he looked into the skull, he saw the energy field, and now he's trapped in this like weird out of phase with reality. So then Nick asks to see Jack and General Hammond, and he basically like speaks for Daniel, like he is the Lorax, he speaks for the trees, and he tells them what Daniel is saying, and then he calls Jack an ass, and that's when Jack believes him that Daniel's been there. Yep. And so they decide that they have to go back to the cavern and complete the process because Teal'c shooting the skull with a zap gun interrupted the process, and that's why Daniel is stuck in this like half in one world, half in the other world thing. So they go back to the cave. Nick puts the skull back on the pedestal, and they wait for the process to start, and it does, and the energy comes back out, and then all of a sudden they are all out of phase with Earth, except Teal'c, who is like, I see no one. And then he's like, General Hammond, I'm coming back because I don't know what happened to the rest of them.
Also, like, they don't seem concerned at all that these quote-unquote giant aliens are Goa'uld. They're just like, yeah, giant aliens, we're going to go see them. Let's go figure it out.
I think it's because it doesn't match with anything that they know about the Goa'uld. Like, at this point, they know pretty much everything there is to know between Teal'c and their experiences. That there's no way.
But like you just think about the way that all these other people explain Goa'uld are not necessarily like correct because it's just one person's experience with like one Goa'uld.
Yeah, but part of it is because the technology doesn't make sense. It's nothing Teal'c can understand, and also
That's true too.
Teal'c says that nothing about that place, like it's too big, it's too weird, it doesn't make sense for anything the Goa'uld
Mm.
have been able to accomplish. And if he would know if that were like true or not.
It makes more sense to tie in with like Mother Nature.
No, yeah, we don't know anything about this alien. So
We sure
um,
don't.
the alien does show up, and we find out that it is Quetzalcoatl, who
Can you tell me about that name? Because
that
I
name.
definitely know that name, and I don't
I'm
know
just
any.
double checking because I thought that that name had to do with the Aztecs. Oh, I was right. Cool, cool, cool. It is. It's an Aztec god.
Right.
I was like, because they're talking. He's speaking Mayan,
And he
and
said it was Mayan.
they're talking about Mayan pyramids, but Quetzalcoatl is absolutely um an Aztec god. Oh, okay. He was primarily, I'm reading this now, he was primarily worshipped by the Aztecs, but he does appear in other Mesoamerican cultures, including the Maya and the Inca.
Mm.
Okay, so yes.
His twin's name is Psychopomp Exotl.
What?
Oh wait, no, it's that's how they're referring. So, I was looking up Quetzalcoatl, and it says in Quetzalcoatl's twin and Psychopomp, Zolotl. I've never heard of that word, Psychopomp,
No,
and
me
now I just want to
neither.
say it forever. It makes me think of like an insane like LSD trip for pomp and circumstance, like
Mm.
which is not not at all related. I don't know what it means,
No,
but yeah,
Quetzalcoatl is a serpent with feathers.
okay, yeah, I thought I recognize him now.
Yes.
I heard the name and I was like, I've definitely heard of this before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
He's like the main god of the Aztecs. Actually, we've talked about him before on this podcast. Um, because of that one really weird Kolchak episode where there was the Aztec sacrifice.
yes, okay. I thought we talked
Yeah.
about it on this podcast, but I couldn't remember why or how or
Yes,
where.
it was a weird Kolchak episode with that guy from the Love Boat who was like
Yes.
the Aztec god. Um
Yes.
so then
Also,
they
I'm so sorry to keep interrupting you.
yeah.
A psychopomp is a guide of souls to the place of the dead.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
I've never heard of this term before in my life,
Me
and it
either,
is
but like
really,
if you break down the words themselves and not like
yeah.
yeah,
Just listen to it as a word. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So basically, they much more quickly than they usually do figure out that the reason Teal'c did not get taken to this universe with them was that he has the symbiote inside him. It often takes them far longer to realize that
So
Teal'c
long.
is, but usually the problem is usually when they do things like that, it has to do with the fact that Teal'c and Sam are both affected, and this is only the symbiote itself is what is affected, not the
Yeah.
connection with the symbiote. So that's why Sam isn't. And like sometimes they make that line of when Sam gets to be part Goa'uld and when she doesn't. They blur that more
Yeah.
than they need to. Which is probably why Sam was so able to quickly understand it this time because it is the symbiote itself that is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so he says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so then Daniel says, once they figure out that that's why Teal'c must not be there, that their enemy must be the Goa'uld. And so they say that they are also enemy of the Goa'uld. And so Quetzalcoatl is like, perfect, then we will accept your
Right.
proposition. We will trade with you. We will be your friends. Down for
Mm-hmm.
that. And then he tells Nick that Nick should stay and learn from them and be their like go between because this is not his first time entering their like plane of existence. And Daniel's like, Nick, you can't do that. Like, you're an old man. You don't have any of the like Stargate information. And he goes, I have been waiting 29 years to get back here. I'm staying.
Yeah.
And that is the end of the episode.
Yep. So my first question, Do we understand why he can see Daniel when no one else can? Does it have to do with the fact that he's traveled to this world
Yes,
before?
he and
Okay.
Daniel actually say that. Daniel's like, "How can you see me?" And he was like, "Maybe because I've had the same experience." They do figure out that his traveling to that plane gives him more, but it's also like they
Okay, that's what
still
I thought.
everyone else who was also in the room and started to feel that energy can sense Daniel but can't see or hear
Mm-hmm.
him.
Yeah.
And so it does have to do with that level of radiation. That is what makes him able to communicate with Daniel.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah. What was the point of this episode? Being the next to last episode of this season.
I mean, we meet a new alien that helps us again in our fight against the Goa'uld question mark.
But why are we introducing them the next to last episode of this season instead of figuring out something we've already talked about? Why are we doing this like episode 2 of next season?
Why do you ask questions about the order that they do things in on the show? We are 3 seasons in and you are still questioning
Because
that?
I'm still distraught about it. I'm so distraught about the way they do the seasons of the show, and how nothing makes sense, and why I'm not getting answers to questions that I have of the last 20 episodes.
I don't know what to
To
tell
be
you.
fair, also, this is the first next to last episode that is just wholly unrelated to everything we've seen so far. Like, it may be related to the next episode, but it's not like tied into what we get a new character.
To be fair, the season 1 only gave us connected episodes because they gave us a shitty 3-parter that was
Right.
dragged on to the second season. And
Mm-hmm.
season two, what was the second to last episode? I don't remember. That was so long
I don't remember,
ago.
but I feel like it was related.
I feel like it wasn't.
Mm.
No, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't because the second to last episode of season 2 was the 1969 flashback.
You're right. Ugh, I don't understand. I don't like their the way
Their
they
format.
do things.
Yeah. It's just like just in case you miss a week, we don't want to. I don't know.
We want to give you a 2-week setup for the finale so you can rearrange your schedule if you need to, and if you miss one, it's all right.
Yeah. So I've got some trivia.
Great.
Actually, like I have a lot. I have 4 screenshots worth. The giant pyramid containing the crystal skull is described by Major Carter to be over 1,000 meters tall. The largest, by modern day comparison, just for a understanding of that, the largest man-made structure ever built, which is the Burj Khalifa, is only 828 meters tall.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, Jack, that's pretty big.
This one I'm not going to read. It says it's a spoiler. Okay. No, it lists itself as a spoiler. I don't really consider it a spoiler, but I guess it is, so I'm going to not read it. What does this say? In the beginning, Carter says that there are leptons in the pyramid. In actuality, a lepton is a type of subatomic particle. Several particles of leptons include electrons, positrons, and neutrinos. However, in the case of neutrinos, they really do pass through everything, no matter how dense. Sunlight is very rich in neutrinos, and an estimated 65 million solar neutrinos pass through 1 square centimeter every second. So yeah, like that was like legit science she gave us there.
Yeah. She's a smarty.
In real life, the crystal skulls discovered in Latin America have been found to be hoaxes, including the one found in Belize in the 1920s. That is what Daniel Jackson's grandfather's story is based on.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
So it is actually more likely that they were made in Germany in the 1800s and then put there, but that's fine.
That's all right. Also, I haven't watched Indiana Jones, so literally this is my reference for crystal skulls now.
Perfect.
But
Quetzalcoatl is the Aztec god of wind, air, and learning. He's also an important deity in a number of other Mesoamerican cultures, including the Mayans and the Incas, though he was most prominently worshipped by the Aztecs. The Aztecs believed that mankind was created by Quetzalcoatl and that he controlled the elements of air and wind and gave mankind the gifts of calendars and books, and that he taught their ancestors how to harvest maize. Unlike most other Aztec gods, there seems to be little evidence to indicate that humans were sacrificed to Quetzalcoatl, while it's common practice to sacrifice children and young girls into the other Aztec gods in order to appease them. So he was like the main god, but also did not want them to kill themselves. So that's cool.
Sure. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
This one, Daniel tosses his pack into the crevasse as he follows Teal'c down the stone path. I saw that happen. This episode, I was thinking about how I need to make a note because I realized that doing the DNA awards for this is going to be very, very hard because we'll be doing it so long from now. I'm honestly thinking we might need to do like some midway DNA
Mid-series.
awards. And actually, now after season 3, it might be a good time. I got to figure out the math on that one, but
I think so because we'll have season 3 and then we do it at season 6 and then 7 is when we start like going in with it's like 7 and then Atlantis 8 Atlantis or is it 7 8 Atlantis?
No, Atlantis is 8 9 and 10.
Got it.
So maybe 3 and then after 7 and I don't know. We got to talk about that off air, but I wanted to make a note because the CGI in this episode may be the worst I've seen so far.
Yes.
The scenes of Teal'c running across the bridge that were just like clearly him running on bad green screen.
Yeah.
It was rough. This is a goof. Daniel's intended not to have any physical form and people can walk right through him. However, and he can walk through them. However, he's seen to be sitting on various objects and leaning on walls and casting shadows.
Well, if you think about it, though, like ghosts can walk through people, but they also can like lean on walls and stuff. They don't fall through a wall just because they're there.
Right. This one, Carter claims that the pyramid is over 1,000 meters high. If this had been the case, they would have struggled to see the top of it when they were standing so close to it. It doesn't appear to be much taller than the Great Pyramids of Giza, which are only about 150 meters high.
Yeah.
Had the pyramid been as tall as described, its base would have had to be more than 2 kilometers long on each side.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When Daniel's talking to Nick in the room at the SGC, Daniel asks, "You can see me?" And Nick says, "Yes." Daniel bumps against the chair, that is standing in front of him. He just like walks into the chair. I don't know why that is on there.
I don't know.
When Teal'c returns to the cavern to retrieve the skull, Daniel's lying in a different position on the floor, so Teal'c no longer has to go through him to get up to the skull. When back to my favorite CGI, when SG-1 and Nick have returned to the skull to the pedestal, the stone wall behind Teal'c briefly obscures the top of his head.
Yeah.
In the opening scene in the control room, the screen behind the Stargate prop that creates the wavy blue light pattern effect can clearly be seen in the background.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened more often.
Honestly, to be fair, yes. This episode might just, let's hope that what happened was they saved a lot of the budget for a big banger of a finale, and that this was just garbage because they didn't have a budget left. But also, to be fair, we do have to remember that the 2 SOCAR episodes were in this season, which blew probably their entire season budget.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And like, I didn't hate this episode necessarily. I do think it's
were
rated
disappointed.
A bit high.
I think it's a really good episode. Aside, like visual effects aside, but I do agree that it's in a weird place in the season for it to be rated as high. But that's not taking into account that it could in fact be connected to next week. We don't have that information yet.
Right. And I want, now that we've seen this episode, I do want to see more about like Nick and maybe his tie into stuff, because it feels very similar to the having like Sam's dad tied into stuff. And I'd like to see Nick tied in with Daniel more. But I don't know that we're gonna get that. I feel like we're not, which makes me sad.
Um, the spoiler that I wasn't going to read that is a spoiler is that we will never again see Nick or these aliens on screen. That doesn't mean that they don't exist in the story. They are
Hmm.
mentioned later times, and we obviously know that there are adventures that happen that we don't get to see because that's how these shows
Sure.
work. But we will never go back to that planet on screen.
That's fine. That's
But
fine.
at least it's never not. At least it's not listed as like never mentioned again. It's never. It's
Yeah,
only. It's
yeah, that
only
is
not
good
on
because
screen. It's only not on screen, and that is unfortunate.
I
But
would
also, like, also you have to remember the actor who played his grandpa graduated music school in 1945.
right. Yeah, and also
Um,
like I'm more concerned about the story than like seeing the visuals again too. So I'm cool if we just like hear more about this like
right.
alien race and how his grandpa tied into stuff and kind of like because I feel like his grandpa's the reason he is who he is based on
Yeah.
this like knowledge I'm getting from it from this
Yeah.
episode.
Jan Rubes died in 2009. He had a
Wow.
stroke. And his last on-screen credit was was in 2005. This was his last television series that he was a part of. He had a couple TV movies and like film that he did after that, but his last time he was on screen was 2005 and he died of a stroke in 2009. So he was not
Mm,
really it wasn't really necessarily because they didn't want to write him in.
sure.
So now that we've gone
Which is
through
fine.
all of that, who would you like to punch?
All of the people who didn't believe Nick and when he committed himself, they treated him like he was an insane person.
That's totally fair. I would like to punch Dr. Rothman because I do not understand how he still has a
Oh,
job.
fair.
In fact,
Yeah.
when the other security guard said, "You're going to get fired," that was one of the other times I laughed so hard.
Yeah.
Because yes, if I was General Hammond, I would in fact fire him.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Who is your MVP?
So I was a little split because I wanted to go with Nick for being the one to know everything and help everything, but just in my heart, I kind of feel like it was Hammond because he listened to kind of what people said to him and he like took in all the like necessary information and made the right choices
Yeah,
based on everything, and that's how this episode turned out because they couldn't have gone to visit Nick if he hadn't approved it or like brought him back and like
right. And like,
he listened to the science even when he didn't know. Like,
there's like really minor but important details of the fact that he never removed the melt from the planet until they were done with
yeah,
all of this. Like those that
absolutely.
they just kept checking for Daniel's life signs. He didn't give up. He told his granddaughters he was going to miss their play because a very close friend of his was lost and that was important to him. Like he absolutely deserves that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um I will pick Nick though, because A, you already picked Hammond, and B, just seeing this man, first of all, when he apologized to Daniel for not adopting him and not being ready to take care of him when his parents died, like that was because I literally said to Dan and Doug, I was like, I forget all the time how young Daniel was when his parents died because they don't talk about it as much as I feel like I would if I was
Right.
Daniel. But when they do it in such a powerful way. Um, and like the apology for that and the like realizing that the reason he had such a hard time with Daniel was because they were the same person and that like and like coming to terms with that relationship and also like saving him.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Um
Yeah, I loved it.
my little mini teaser is that next season or next episode is the season finale of season 3 and we will get both returning and brand new things.
Interesting.
I know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel very conflicted with feelings then.
I let me just double check that I didn't just entirely make that up. I think I remember this up. I think I remember this episode, but Like I remember the general premise, um, but I might be making up what. Uh, oh yeah, no, I'm not making it up. Perfect. I was absolutely correct. We get returning aliens and brand new aliens. So
Oh, interesting. I'm
yeah,
gonna need an alien flowchart by the end. I'll bring an alien
that's
flowchart to our wrap up.
perfect. And then Doug will probably try to. I warned him. I said, Courtney knows nothing about the show. You cannot talk about anything that happens post season 3. He said, I don't have enough practice. I don't have as much practice as you, and I haven't been watching season 3 as closely as you have. So you might need to tell me to shut up a couple times.
Yeah, just tell him to follow the cues. If I start yelling
Um,
incessantly, stop talking.
Perfect. And with that, we will see you guys all on Thursday for Thriller Thursday. And have a good week. I know I will, because
Yeah. Oh
school will
wait,
be
wait.
over.
You can
What?
find us at all of these
Oh,
places.
yeah, duh. Do you want to talk to us? I'm just so used to nobody giving a shit about where the podcast is. If you want to talk to us, please do. Our email is deathandaliens@gmail.com. And you can follow us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can follow me at CECloud13.
And with that, now we will see you on Thursday for Thriller Thursday. Bye.
Yeah.